All righty. We're going to go ahead and start the October 15th, 2015 Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments Transportation Advisory Committee. It's 1:35, and we have a quorum. And go ahead and do some introductions. Jennifer Irvin, El Paso County.
Brian Batuli, City of Colorado Springs, Mountain Metro Transit.
Joel Spuck, City Above the Clouds, Woodland Park.
Darren Horsemeyer, Schriever Air Force Base.
Rick Arfin for Carson.
Craig Casper, PPACG.
Scott Golds, PPACG.
Mike Snow, CDOT. Aaron Busto, Federal Highways.
Ted Hyde with Bicycle Colorado.
Victoria Chavez, El Paso County. And we do our audience as well.
Kyle Wilson, Southern Colorado, Twin Cities.
Susan Davis, Trails and Open Space Coalition. Great, thanks, and glad we have an audience today. We have an agenda. There were some changes that were sent out within the last 24 hours, but still.
24 and a half hours.
Yes.
They went out at 1 o'clock.
So still
Half
within
an
our.
hour to spare.
Yes, still within our requirements, so, and I think hopefully if you've downloaded it, it's the new agenda was on the website, so hopefully everybody has that, so if you're not seeing some of these things, you may have an old agenda. So, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye? Huh? Yeah. So public comments, these are, any public comments for anything that's not on the agenda? Is there any from the, okay.
Can I ask who made the motion and the second, please?
Motion.
Brian?
And the second from Bill.
Bill.
We was going to make.
Thank you, because, and if I can just take a sec, lacking staff right now, we're going to try something new. And that's, we're going to do I won't say abbreviated minutes, but we're going to do more of a, here's what was discussed, here's a motion, here's a second, here's the vote, and then we're going to put the video on the web with minutes noted, so at, 3 minutes and 17 seconds was the motion and that sort of thing. But we're down enough staff now that we can't keep up, so that's one of the things we're going to try to do, see how that works. And if it doesn't work, we'll go back to the old way, so.
Hey. Next item is the approval of the minutes. These were the minutes from the September 17th, 2015 meeting. Does anybody have any comments on those minutes or concerns? Okay, do I have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
I wasn't either.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's
Any
right.
further discussion?
I wasn't here either.
All those in favor?
quorum.
Aye. Any opposed?
Abstain.
And we have an abstention. Got that, Craig?
Yep.
The Board of Directors report, and this, because this is an interesting month of
Yes.
meetings, it was yesterday,
It
so.
was yesterday. They approved TIP Amendment 5. They tabled TIP Amendment 6, which necessitated the next item on the agenda, Amendment number 6. And then there were a lot of discussions about a strategic plan, PPACG doing a strategic plan. It looks like we're going to be doing that or in some fashion, probably assembled from other the PPACG departments and then the local entities' plans. We'll sort of smash them all together, and that will become our strategic plan. Then we heard about ozone. Our ozone is going awesome. We're not going to be in violation of even the new standard. And if next year's level is similar to this year's level, we could be right around 0.65, 0.66, so we'd be real close to attainment of even a stricter standard. The downside of that is CMAQ funds are, we're done with our carbon monoxide CMAQ funds in 2019, so we probably won't be seeing any ozone CMAQ funds.
Question about the strategic plan. Are there federally set requirements for what that has to entail for an MPF?
We don't even have to do one.
Oh, you don't?
No.
It's optional.
Yep.
All right. What might that look like? Would it address like socioeconomics?
I honestly, we've had 24 hours to think about it, and I haven't given it really much thought. I don't think it'll look much like Dr. Cog's based on the comments of the board after. I think it would actually, it could be the antithesis of Dr. Cog's plan.
When you said MetroVision?
Yes, MetroVision. So it'd probably be something completely unlike MetroVision, based on what I heard yesterday, so.
There was some discussion on how to align those with other strategic plans, like the cities and the counties, and try and look for, I want to say similar threads, or how
Right.
did they term that? But looking at some of those to make sure that we're kind of including all those and other people's, if Woodland Park has some, and so at least trying to identify some of that was one discussion item at the board, so.
But they wanted to make sure they had the regional business alliances plan or their input. That was a key one that everybody, it wasn't just local entities, they wanted the business alliance in there also, so.
And then the only other thing, Craig, on the Board of Directors report, I would say, is that there was some discussion about a 360 review for Rob.
Congratulations.
So there was some discussion about having staff input into that, and it got put to, there was some discussion about having review by the committees, and then I'm a little confused about what actually happened, and
It sounds
Rob
like
was too.
the advisory committee chairs, so the TAC, the CAC, the RAC, AQTC, MCC, though the chairs of those committees will be providing input to the board. But the staff wasn't tabled, or was tabled until next year at the earliest. But I think what I think I heard was that the chairs of the advisory committees would be doing that.
Yeah, and I thought I heard two different things, that the chairs would be, or that the advisory committees would be pulled. So I'm interested to see that happens, but I will tell you that if that comes to me as the chair, then I will be going out, hopefully, to the rest of the TAC and getting some input, because I'm not going to do that alone. Anyway,
It's not so much anonymous anymore.
yeah,
If it just goes to the chairs.
Yeah.
so. Although that's what I did request, is that if it went to the entire TAC, that, it would be an anonymous input. So I'm interested to see how that comes out, because I thought I heard kind of two different things at the board meeting. So.
What I, talking to Rachel after, or not Rachel, Barb, is there'd be some sort of neutral, or some sort of comment site you can go to. So it just, comments are put there, without any attribution, and then they're carried into it. So, but it's all new to us, too. It happened real time at the board, so.
And then we've had also two additional members come, so introduce yourself.
Tim Roberts, City of Colorado Springs.
Michelle Anthony, City Manager.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So I think that's it for the Board of Directors report, unless anybody else had any questions. All righty, moving on to item number 6, 2016 to 2019 TIP Amendment number 6, Scott Phillips, and this doesn't have whether it's action, what kind of action is requested.
And well, I'll take it real quick. That's because you already acted on it, you recommended approval. So what we're asking for ourselves, sorry, Scott, is the CAC had some questions. They're on the second page, and these are their words. So I don't. So like the first one, I know the word languished is a loaded term. So the CAC was looking for answers to those questions before they could make an informed recommendation. So you all, I assume you still want the TIP amendments to move forward. If you have worked out years, that'd be great if you could provide them to us. If they're not final yet, let us know what we can do to help get something into what year the projects would actually go into. So
Can you say that again? The red part is what they,
on the back part, I don't. Sorry, mine's not in color. So on the second page, the Community Advisory Committee was not provided with Table 1. That was our bust. But they had questions about the projects, and so there's about 8 bulleted questions there that they were looking for answers to for each of the 6 projects.
So Craig, do you suggest that the member entity governments who have projects attend the CAC this month to address those issues directly with the CAC?
Yes, including CDOT. So CDOT staff could attend the CAC also. But if the member entities with the 6 projects could provide us answers to those 8 questions, and some of them, they're repetitive. You see a lot about the delay of the project, those type of things. So maybe just a description of what's happened and, what, permits. The CDOT, Wendy, when we were talking to her, said that, yeah, a lot of these are, things that took 2 years to get an IGA or whatever. You just getting that information, but we couldn't answer that at the CAC. Because there was nobody from CDOT or the local entities there, so they would ask questions, I really don't know. So,
Was that?
lacking the information, they tabled it.
Collect, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Jim?
I didn't see, and maybe I missed it in the printouts of the packet, but I didn't see the 8 questions that they had.
Yeah, I'm not finding those things.
So I sent out a new packet yesterday. It's new item 6, page 2. It's tip amendment 6.
I just,
Okay, I got the table, but I didn't see anything.
I just-
I think you have to go to the original one, page 2, in the new stuff you sent only the table.
Oh, it's in the original, in the initial.
You should have been in the first email. The table was the second email, but the first email had the item number and the memo.
All right, let me just make a note of that.
So-
So the memo was in the first email.
Do what?
Well, and I can read the questions out loud if that would help.
Who's on first? Just,
Who's on first?
We're not going to address them now, so you don't have to worry about it.
yeah. Craig, I mean, personally, for the county's projects, I'd rather just attend the meeting and answer their questions directly rather than have you guys write a huge memo that includes all the answers to those questions.
And then they might have questions based on that, so I will see if that's next Wednesday?
No, it's the last Wednesday of the month.
I believe it's the 30th.
28, yeah, whatever the. Yeah. Look it up.
At 3:30?
Yeah, 3:30, yeah, and they usually go to bed between 5 and 5:30.
Would this be early on the agenda?
Say again?
Would this be-
Yeah, since it's repeat, we'll make sure it's early on it, so.
Yeah, we can do that.
I agree that it'd probably be best if we just attended, if we can.
That's the Transportation Summit Day.
And I think if we could get some of the, what's going on with the projects, the history, I think that would help us. Not, say, project was obligated, any permits or whatever, just, what's going on with the project. I think that would help. We would like to provide in a memo, to send out if we can. So. And some of the projects, I think we can get answers from, probably from either Michael or Aaron. What happens if the projects are not awarded extra funds? So I don't really know what happens if projects, it has to either be completed to the original scope or money paid back or something. I honestly don't. So
Or it gets cut back.
I'll be looking. I'll be probably asking you more informed questions at another time.
Well, a lot of these are cost adjustments, so it wouldn't be going back to original scope, because like our scopes are the same. We would have to cut back on the project.
See, with federal money, you can't do that. You have to complete the original scope.
We wouldn't be able to do it.
Then you give the
Can't-
money back. I mean, you
Yeah, then
do
you
the
pay it,
project
then
or
you
you
pay it.
don't. Those are your options.
So,
So if we don't get the extra money because prices have changed and because we've had disasters and, a variety of things and IGAs didn't get done on time, if we don't get the extra money, the projects don't get done.
and just any federal money that's spent gets paid back. So that one I can probably answer in memo. Are there any other questions on this?
Would it be useful to reaffirm our motion?
It probably
Sure.
would be.
I'll move that we strongly suggest that the CAC and the board provide these additional funds that are required in order to get the projects done due to a variety of external reasons.
second.
Is there something else I need
I don't know,
to say? I'm kind of done.
just waiting for the period.
That's my period.
So I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Anything from the audience? Alrighty, then we'll vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So item number 7 is the fiscal year 2016 to 2019 TIP Amendment number 7. This is a review and recommend item. Scott Phillips, Transportation Planner.
Yeah, I do. Are you talking about the, yeah, right here. This is also a revised item. Just received information with regards to the Baptist Road interchange, I-25, and that the CTC is recommended repayment of the $11.431 million back to BBRTA. So that's also been added and incorporated into this amendment request. So here's the memo. Just received it. I received it yesterday, so. As part of this amendment, this is adding, it's 6 CDOT projects totaling $28.966 million to the TIP for FY16. In addition to the BBRTA $11 million that proposed repayment. We request that the TAC recommend approval to the Board of Directors and endorse this amendment.
Does anybody have any questions for Scott?
Move approval.
Second.
Any further discussion by the committee? Anything from the audience? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, moving on. Weighting of the 2017 to 2022 TIP scoring criteria. This is a review and recommend item. Craig Casper, Transportation Director.
Okay, the CAC went through the same process for weighting the criteria as was done during the long-range plan, with one exception, a pairwise comparison, where all of the 78 possible combinations of goal areas were compared against each other. So congestion reduction or system maintenance, which is more important, stormwater or system maintenance. And so they went through that, which helped them. They really like that. They went through that process to figure out the ranking, and then that helped inform their weighting process. If you on the second page, I don't know, do you have this attachment? On the middle line shows the lines show which projects are where they ranked. So if the top of the line is where the 13 would be, that means it was the most important. If the bottom of the line is where a 1 would be, that was the least important. 7 of the projects were ranked as most important. 8 of the projects were ranked as least important, or the categories were ranked as least important, and 3 were actually ranked both most and least important. And that is out of the 2/3 to 3/4 of the CAC members that filled out the weighting. The results are very similar to the results of the 2040 RTP. Some of the differences are wildlife habitat is rated slightly higher, infill is rated slightly higher, impact reduction is rated higher. At the cost of safety is rated lower, connectivity is rated lower, cost effectiveness is rated lower, and mobility congestion is really rated, is probably the biggest change. I had a brief discussion with the ranker who weighted safety least important, because I was curious, how do you rate safety least important? And the response was that from an engineering standpoint, we're already doing things that need to be done. The problem with safety is behavior of motorists. That was their feeling. So that what we're selecting for projects wasn't, in that person's view, wasn't as much of an issue as, because I was curious about how safety. So that's how that one. If you look at the ranking sheet again in the middle, the line shows the total range of scores. The box shows where the first standard deviation, about 2/3 of the respondents fall in those boxes. So are there any questions on the weighting?
I find that safety one interesting. I mean, just a comment, because.
Yeah, because I was curious, it's like, how do you rate
Yeah.
safety last?
We are getting comments and concerns all the time into our department in regards to, you need to increase safety on this road. That's one of the, it's not really capacity, it's safety and,
But those comments are often non-specific and very subjective.
ours are very specific.
Well,
Yeah.
safety can be very subjective. I think the logic that was explained was
Yeah.
reasonable.
Because I was like, well, safety last?
We
It's like,
still
yeah,
have a lot of
because,
safety
because
improvements to do on
from an
our
engineering's
roads.
point, the roads are fine. It's the behavior of the people texting and
Yep.
drinking that's where the safety issue is, so.
I think maybe it depends on your municipality and what you have, because a lot of our roads still do not meet minimum standards.
Then you adjust your behavior.
Well, those are things that we can fix. I mean, when people are running red lights, that's a behavior that you can't really change. It's not a function of, it's not engineered to be safe, but we do have roads that are, at least in the county, that are, definitely have some safety issues that need to be addressed.
Other things like curve radii and sight lines and things like that?
Yeah. Vertical, horizontal
Yeah,
sight
it's
distance.
vertical,
Yeah.
the Black Forest.
I'm curious, does that put the county in a position of liability if there were an incident?
It could.
I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it could, but I mean, we're trying with the amount of funding we have to correct those as quickly as possible.
We do what we can with the money we have.
Of course. So I'm with you, and I think Jennifer, that point about it being operator versus design is, I'm with you.
There's certainly, I mean, we certainly have those instances where we have people call in and say, you need a traffic signal here, and those traffic signals are not warranted and wouldn't increase the safety, but, yeah. Anyway, anybody else have any thoughts or discussions on this item?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. Craig, do you guys, I wasn't here for your last process, do you have a minimum score that's a floor below which projects are essentially discarded or put on a waiting list for the raw score?
For us, no, all scores are considered,
Or
so.
what they are?
Yeah, anything, we go under the assumption, any project that locals submit is a priority for some reason, so.
And it just goes as far as the money is, and then there's a line that would come
Yeah.
up there.
Yeah.
And then there's discussion of those that were cut off. Should we reconsider, reevaluate some of those?
Yeah.
And the reason for having the least important criteria, is that just a means of comparison? It's not as if those are thrown out. But
No,
I'm just curious as to why PPACG would establish most important, least important. Is it just for comparative purposes?
No, we use a weighted score, we don't use the raw scores. So all the scores get multiplied by their weights to get the final score. So even, I think it's wildlife habitat is going to be, is ranked lowest. That still is figured into the score, so.
Victoria?
I think I'd like to suggest one of two options. One, we either reaffirm the 2040 regional plan scores because we provided input into that, or we don't make a recommendation on this since we didn't have anything to do nor any input on the CAC process.
So you're saying because we weren't involved in the waiting, that we don't make a recommendation?
Yeah, we can't change it. We can just rubber stamp it, and so we can either reaffirm the ones that we did have input on, which is the 2040 regional plan ones, and make a motion to accept that versus the 2017 tip ones by the CAC, or we just don't make a recommendation.
But we weren't involved in the weighting of the RTP values, were we?
Thought we were.
The 2040?
I think they ended up being averaged. I think the TAC did a weighting exercise and they were averaged.
Right. So we have some input in that, and, then you should vote when you have input on something, but just a rubber stamp what somebody else did that we didn't have anything to do with, that we didn't listen to the arguments on, that we don't really understand why they picked these things. I don't see the benefit or the point in that.
That's what they say about our recommendations.
And they actually use the term rubber stamp also.
process-wise, Victoria makes a great point.
I wonder if, out of respect for the CAC and their wishes to, we worked on it obviously and had some input, we talked about one explanation for one change that we've seen. Maybe it's worth our time to kind of think through some of the bigger ones. You know, some of these made a big shift, and we ask the question why, and maybe we at least give it a conversation, because maybe there's some explanation from our perspective, or just a suggestion.
I hear that. I doubt
Needs to stay here
that it
longer
would
today,
fit
but-
in the timeline that we have for the plan. Which is why I give the option
I don't
of
mean
just
beyond
voting
today.
for the 2040 ones that we provided input on.
Yeah, I didn't mean beyond today. I mean like now, today. We talk about some of those that stand out. You know, I see big jumps on like wildlife habitat and mobility and that sort of thing. So,
Well, we can talk about them, but we don't know why they picked them.
oh, I thought Craig was armed with.
No, we don't have any specifics, other than the safety one I was curious. From an actual effective standpoint, we don't need the final weights until we get to the scoring, which is in January. So between now and then, what the weights would do is inform you all as to where to put emphasis on the applications. So I guess so it's possible to do we don't need a board final approval in November.
But you don't want to go out to a call with the weighting and the weighting and the scoring not set.
Well, the call's already been issued. It was issued yesterday.
Okay.
So,
It seems I don't know. That seems kind of backward to do it after the fact.
so it's a timing issue. So until we do the scores, as I said, they're not, from my perspective, they're not wildly different than the 2040. So,
We also have till December 15th.
all right, is when the applications are due.
Play out Victoria's scenario. If we opt to not support these, they carry through regardless?
Yeah. They'll go to the board. If there's no recommendation from TAC, it'll go to the board with the CAC's recommendation, staff's recommendation, and TAC's lack of recommendation.
The 2040 weighting, though, was weighed in by all the, right, Craig, if I remember correctly? I mean, I think that's what we just said is.
Yeah, what happened
TAC
then is
and the board.
the CAC did the weighting, the TAC didn't agree with the weighting, so you did your own weighting process, and went to the board, and then the two were averaged.
Okay, well, just for expediency, I will move that we recommend the 2040 RTP scores, weights to be used for the scoring.
Second.
Any further discussion by the committee? Anything from the audience?
Susan Davies, Trails and Open Space Coalition. One question, I did attend the CAC, and one thing that concerned me in that conversation, Craig, is why did a third of those folks not participate?
They never directly, none of that, because I asked them. I can speculate, I shouldn't, but they were given multiple opportunities as individually approached about doing the exercise, and the 6 that didn't, said they wouldn't.
Well, then, as an outsider standpoint, I would venture that maybe this needs to be rethought, because if you have a body that's tasked with doing something, and it's not doing it, and then it's creating these kinds of problems, maybe either they should decide not to be part of that process, and it should go back to this body, or something else happen. At least that should be communicated to the board, because that seems very flawed to me.
Yeah.
Brian, I think you had something.
Yeah, well, until Susan stood up, I thought I was going to say one thing, but I think I'll say a couple things. I didn't know that there wasn't much participation from the CAC. I was willing to recommend approval of CAC's weights, but with the comment that next time we go through this, let's do a consistent process for both the plan and the tip, so we don't get into an issue like this again. I think I'll support moving forward with the RTP weights.
Should I make a note of Susan's comment that TAC is not happy with the not lack of full participation of the CAC in the weighting exercise? Or anything like that, or?
I think, Craig, that I can probably put together several comments that I heard here from the TAC members and provide that to the board. I mean, that's
Okay.
a suggestion.
That'd be good.
That way the board can hear why we went this way versus, and that can include one of, if everybody's okay with that, that can include Susan's thoughts, because I'm hearing, from Brian here that he's in agreement with that, so.
So, pun intended here, but if we're going to move forward with
Moving forward.
weighing so heavily on one committee's weights, then that whole committee should participate.
Yes.
It shouldn't just be whoever wants to do it and who doesn't want to do it.
And hearkening back even earlier, the 2035, when we didn't have full participation of the CAC or the TAC, what the board says, let's go out to the public. And we ended up using focus groups and some other random dial things, and boy, that really confused the issue. I wouldn't recommend that anymore, but yeah, we do need a better representation. Because of the 14 that filled it out, that's 14 of the CAC members completed it out of 21 or 20.
We did lose
But
one member.
And with that 14, you got 7 most importance and least importance. So that's showing that there's a wide spectrum of what's important.
Tim, did you have something?
Well, I'm just wondering, is this committee still in agreement with our 2040, with our own recommendations in 2040, or should we even be considering a new weighting of our own?
I hear
Approaching the
that,
board on that.
and I like that, because ours were different than what's in here, but this, I think, represents the joining and the bringing together of the two committees, and I think it provides the board potentially a way they can just go forward, and we can all start filling out our applications.
I agree.
Consistency.
Any further discussion? Because I think I have a question on the floor. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Item number 9, 2040 Regional Transportation Plan. Review and recommend. Craig Casper, Transportation Director.
We officially completed our public comment period last Friday. We sent out the comments in a table yesterday, with the exception of some comments from NEBCO, I think you called them, Jennifer. The general comments, I'll just go through them quickly, and then we'll put them into the format that will go to the CAC and board. The plan is well researched and professionally presented. The graphics lack granularity required to see specific areas of interest when viewed on paper or in digital form. There's 5 comments expressing why they're unhappy that the high-speed rail from Colorado Springs to Denver was excluded. They would like that included in the plan. There are 3 comments about some calculating errors that they, or philosophical approaches that they didn't like. They didn't like you carrying 2035 information into 2040. Said if there was an error in 2035, you compound that error with 5 more years of inflation, and it turns into a 23% or larger error than would have been started if you had started with new calculations. And then there are 2 editorial comments. One is that 2 tables are labeled 7-1, and the inclusion of minority populations in one of the tables, they didn't think that was necessary. So those are there's 2, 7, 10, 12 total comments in those 5 categories from NEBCO. And the rest of them are spelled out in the table you saw. There were large some editorial changes, some text changes. Are there any questions on those?
Not a question, but when you put them into the format for the board, make sure your lines, because, there's some you can't read.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we didn't, it didn't stretch out far enough.
Yeah,
So.
and thank you for including the DAR stuff, although I'm a little disappointed about UPass, given the UPass trail that we wanted to switch some things around and hopefully get funded and get put in. I'm a little disappointed we couldn't figure out a way to do that considering some of the disasters and whatnot that we've had up there. Things have changed.
And what isn't said in the comment is, assuming we get any projects in the TIP that are not funded in the plan, we'll need to do a plan amendment at that point, and that is a really good opportunity to do that.
Okay.
So that wasn't put in there because that is in the foreseeable future. There may be projects that get funded in the TIP that aren't in our plan now, so we'll be going through that process
Great.
possibly in a year. So.
That gives me a way forward. Thank you.
Yep.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Any further discussion by the committee? Anything from the audience?
Who was the second? Thank you.
Brian. Victoria and Brian. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving right along, item number 10, project priority list. Review and recommend Craig Casper, Transportation Director.
And so the table encompasses what I had in my notes as far as priority projects. I'm not sure that it is everything that was talked about. The way it's organized, there's the list of projects above the line 12 that I'm sure were agreed on. Then there's 2 projects in lines 13 and 14 that are not included in the plan that were discussed as being included in the list. And then there's 5 projects below that that were talked about as needed projects, but not sure they should be in the list. I never got, unfortunately, the board didn't have a chance to take this as information. What I was hoping to get from them was, should we be looking at something other than road projects on state highways? Should we look at projects on NHS routes? Should we look at, other than road projects, what I was looking for some guidance from there, but the board did not get to that item. So I think it's open for the advisory committees to judge and make that determination.
Judy, I suggest we go outside of state projects. I don't think we'd have to be exclusive. It's just priority projects. If they're on state roads, lovely. If they're on local roads, then lovely too.
So.
And I would be for any non-highway type of project, such as a new downtown transit station or
Theoretically.
multimodal facility, something like that.
Great. I think that's a great idea as far as the committee looking at some of those projects, because then that at least gives the board that option. And then if they decide not to include those type of projects, then, but at least then we've talked about those and given those that option. So let's open it up. I mean, Craig, do you have any thoughts about how to do this? Is just to talk about projects that maybe are not on the list?
Yeah, exactly. If you don't have, let's start with the list, I'll call list A, which is the above line 12, the lines 2 through 11. All those projects, I think I heard agreement last month that there was, head nodding that those were good projects to include on the priority list. We still don't have a cost for the safety improvements on Highway 94 from CDOT, so I don't know who exactly, probably Mark, Andrew, or somebody.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Craig, if I could also add, on the description of that project, I believe it would be from US 24 to Ellicott Highway.
Okay.
I agree.
Instead of State Highway 21 to the El Paso Douglas County line.
US 24
That would be a
to
long roundabout way to Douglas County.
Ellicott. Oh, yeah. I think I might have had a copy-paste error there. Okay, US 24 to Ellicott Highway. Okay.
Any other feedback for Craig on those first 11? Anything from the audience? We'll get that in.
Hold on. Thinking number 8, didn't we discuss that the widening of Powers wasn't as important as the connection to I-25? From Powers, from 83 to I-25?
I think it was discussed. I'm not sure there was agreement on
An
it.
extremely expensive project.
Really, really low
Yeah, it was actually a negative benefit cost, so.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah, so what I envision, and you guys please correct me, is a list of projects that are using existing sources of funding and are included in the plan, and a second list of projects that are not included in the financial but are still priorities. And those are the two projects that fall into that category right now are in lines 13 and 14, the Powers Extension and US 24 West. Neither of those projects are included in the funded portion of our long-range plan. We don't have a cost yet for US 24 West widening for a couple of reasons. The cost that we have is from I-25 to 31st Street and includes all of the interchanges and raising the road up out of the old floodplain, which is no longer necessary. The new firm maps have a lower flood level through there, so that will, a lot of the cost was raising the entire stretch of the road up. So Mark Andrew and his staff are working on getting us a cost estimate of just the widening from 8th Street, because as part of the Cimarron, it's getting widened to 8th Street. Widened from 8th Street to, I want to say 26th. He had a very specific project in mind, and I think it was tapering around from 26th, between 26th and 30th, tapering it back down. But he is working on that cost estimate as we speak, or his staff is.
Your extension of Powers,
Yes.
the 175 million, but that, not all that would be
That what,
money, right? And did you take into account the,
there's 30, yeah, there's 30,
Private section.
there's $34 million in PPRTA, and I want to say $31 million in TIF. That is the total cost. So the federal funding is that minus the other two. So would you like to see just the federal? I can, just to show federal.
I know right now CDOT is participating in a design process, an application that looks at I-25 connecting to Voyager. And it seems like if we're spending monies and efforts on that, that should probably be in our priority, especially if CDOT's on board with that.
Okay, that project has never been submitted to us or considered before. So.
Okay.
Can I tweak the way you want to list
Tweak
this?
away.
Generally, what we've used these priority lists for are when monies become available, or when there's new monies, or when we're doing RPP money. So if we list things as already funded in the plan, it kind of sounds like we already have money for them. And so maybe what we do is have a list of priorities, and then maybe a top 1 or 2 projects, whether they're funded or not, because we might have another ballot initiative that comes up that puts more money in, and
Yep.
we need to have projects ready for that.
I refer to that as the pennies from heaven option.
There, I like that option. I just am a little concerned with the perception of it if we list them as funded in the plan. Then it sounds like we can go pay for them, and generally we can't.
And,
And then if you want to split it up state and local, that's kosher too. And I'm good with all the ones on the top. I don't feel like fighting with Tim today, but I think that's a really expensive project, so I will hope that the Powers extension doesn't make to the top 1 or 2. Because it would eat up the entire penny from heaven if we were ever to get them. I think we need to look at 16, 17, 18, and 19 and consider them carefully, because they're crazy expensive and they will no doubt sop up every extra penny from heaven.
And those projects either didn't score well or are not needed in the next 10 years, sort of 10 to 15 years sort of
Given
deal.
the Cimarron stuff that you have put in there, I would
Yep.
tend to agree with those, so I might suggest leaving off 16 through 20. And then if we wanted to add a project, I would look at adding US 24 west intersection with Fountain/Ute Pass. And that could be a state one since it is on a state highway. That intersection needs to be redone. And then I have
Do we have a rough
This is
cost on that,
actually-
or what the actual work is? I know that's been, I've heard it talked about in meetings, I just don't know exactly what.
We have to look at that soon anyway, so we'll get that to you,
Okay.
or get you a rough estimate of that.
I would say a starting estimate would be $4 to $5 million,
Okay.
There you go.
but that's being looked at by CDOT right now.
Yep.
So expanding on your logic a little bit, the least expensive project maybe ought to be number one.
Part of me wants to go that way, but part of me recognizes you can't just pick it based on money, too. They should be in fundable chunks, I'll put it that way.
Yes.
Something that can actually get accomplished if some money shows up.
Tim?
2 comments. First of all, the regional non-motorized top 10 corridors, are those going to be priorities for the region?
I would like to think so. We went through a pretty extensive process. I think they're good corridors. I know like the Ute Pass non-motorized corridor is one that we talked about earlier. So we could put in, $10 million to non-motorized improvements in the priority corridors, and without specifying exactly what the improvements are, and if those monies become available, then really hit the where can we make this best investment.
Okay.
And that's a possibility.
And then this,
Can we do all 31 corridors instead of the top 10?
I don't have
You want
any
to take
idea.
advantage of any potential pairing of projects that may come along, so I would hate to say it should only be these top 10 when we have maybe another project that's going to come along that could help fund that whole thing.
We have cost estimates for the top 10 or 11 corridors. I don't think we did cost estimates. Brian,
If
do you
you're
remember?
putting in 10 million for priority non-motorized, it doesn't matter.
Okay, so we'll just leave it as non-motorized priorities.
there's not 31 corridors, though.
I think there were 31 in the whole thing,
21.
wasn't there?
There's 21.
Well, there's 21, well, there's,
Alignment.
yeah, there's different alignments, so, but, yeah, there's,
So there's corridors, and then within the corridors, there's different alignments.
So the big number.
Okay.
Keep it
My
general.
Yeah, keep it
Yeah.
general.
second question is, can you, on this list, can you tell me which ones are not in the 2040 plan on our priority list?
13, 14, and 16.
So if they're on our priority list, but they are not in the plan, it's because of cost prohibitive.
Yeah, exactly. And, yeah, we ran out of money, and some of the scores, there are, some of the projects, there are projects that are not included also that are above those in scores and also didn't get included because we ran out of money, so.
So if we're setting aside, you said like $10 million for regional non-motorized.
But
does that
whatever you would
change this-
like.
Does that change this? Does that change our, yeah,
Does it change the, what, sorry?
does it change our top 11? Does our number 11 fall out?
Well, right now, I wouldn't, no. I think we are good making a list to $400 or $500 million. I think that's about what we did last time. And so we have about, I want to say, 240 million right now in 1 to 11. You add in 13 and 14, you're adding in, some other costs there, if you do. But I'm comfortable myself going to a list of $400 million. 500, probably is probably on the outside.
So so you're suggesting the line be 14 and up?
Well, and the other thing is, I don't think, you could choose to put this is our number one priority, this is number two. I would prefer maybe a bulleted with maybe picking one as a highest, and then leaving everything else as sort of a bulleted and let the board decide that. I mean, that's where I would.
Bill?
Just because it's relevant to 10, and I don't know that it really matters, but I'd just like to get, Craig, your spin on. On number 10, we're investing in doing the design. We're doing the preliminary design right now, and we'll have the final construction document design done next year for that project. So it's basically on the shelf, ready to go. The city's investing in doing that, and we realize it's a CDOT project, and we're working with CDOT on the design, but we're investing to do the design now. So I don't know if that's
It
relevant
is, and
or
that
not,
is something to note.
So,
So I would add that it's not, and just to comment on the notes where it says not specified in the RTP. In the RTP, there's funding, safety, operations, and other things where we don't specify projects. And so all those projects would actually pull down against, when somebody asks, are they included in the plan, we say yes. Where is it? Well, they're not specified because the type of improvements like that are safety improvements, you don't know what you're going to do or where exactly. So those would be, that's why they're listed in as part of the RTP. Any others? So I have US 24 West Fountain Ute Pass intersection for about $5 million and $10 million of regional non-motorized priorities. Was there a downtown transit center possibly?
Yep.
You got a number?
Downtown, I can pull one up, yeah. Downtown Transit
Double it.
Station / Multimodal Center. I'd say this could be revised upon consultation, but 20 million?
Okay. Yeah, if you want to send me a number, there's, next Wednesday is the mail out for the CAC, so if we had it for them, that'd be perfect.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Craig?
Mhm.
3 words of specificity. If you wouldn't mind, just in the line item for the 10 million, just please make clear that it's from the adopted plan we're talking about.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks.
Craig, one thing I don't see on here, which has been discussed, and maybe it's not something that this region's looking at putting a lot of money in, but finishing the widening of I-25 on the north side as well. It has the one on the south side.
Yeah, from yesterday's discussion. That was something that came up in the board meeting yesterday, is should we include in our priority project list completing I-25 from Monument to Castle Rock? Is that the one you're talking about?
Or at least monument to the county line. I mean, it was discussed at last month's TAC as well, I think, in the.
I think that would be good for us to nudge the Dr. Cog people that, hey, we think this is a priority. Admittedly, it's, mostly our problem, but I-25 Monument. And I'll put whatever the PEL study is. I think it's Monument to Castle Rock.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if our board of directors wants to put a lot of money into it, but
So I know there are some members have talked about putting, some of our RPP money into it, so.
And what if we sort of narrow it down to the environmental impact statement to get the environmental done, which is a much more doable piece than actually getting the widening?
Yep.
And
I
the
think they're doing a-
necessary first step anyway.
yeah, I think they're doing a PEL. I think that's what they were looking at doing, right?
Yes.
There you go.
But after PEL, we still need an environmental analysis, right?
Yeah, EA.
So I agree with Victoria to kind of get us to the point of construction and help.
What if we say
Emphasize.
studies necessary to,
I don't mind just saying environmental assessment, because that means, hey, whenever you get to this point, well,
Okay with
we
that.
support it.
Get NEPA completed? Okay.
all right, how about I try a motion?
That would be
And
awesome.
then we can talk about local priority projects? All right. I am going to move that we include in our list of top projects numbers 2 through 11, with the addition of US 24 West intersection at Fountain and Ute Pass Avenue, with $10 million for non-motorized projects, and downtown transit center, and getting through the environmental process for widening I-25 from Monument to the county line.
Jim?
A friendly recommendation to go 14, include 13 and 14, because Craig had mentioned a higher number, about 400 million, you said we did last time, 400 to 500 million?
All right, I'll be nice to you. Yes, to include 13 and 14, although I think the extension's too expensive, but whatever.
So I have a
I'll
motion
second that.
And a second. Further discussion? Anything from the audience? No. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Do you want to try and figure out what the first and second projects are of those, since we got the list down now, before we move on to local ones? I'm looking at you, Craig.
I will tell you, I'm more comfortable just providing a bulleted list to
And
them
let
and
pick
letting
one
them
and
pick.
two? Okay, I can deal with that.
So.
And then further discussion on any local projects we want to suggest? Other local projects? Victoria?
Charter Oak Ranch Road. Academy Boulevard South. Ute Pass Trail.
Shh, slow down.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Pass Trail, okay.
And Highway 105, Lake Woodmore to 83.
Can I ask a question about Mark Shuffle North?
I'm going to look to Tim for that, since it's mostly their road.
I'm not going to suggest that, but what I will suggest is Stapleton Briargate Parkway.
I had thoughts of that as well. I would concur.
And is that the US 24 potential future cutoff thing?
Potentially, yes. Unless we screw up our signal.
Further discussion? Additional discussion? Dwayne?
Oh, other people have to have one.
I like the Mesa Ridge Parkway connection between, this is Powers there, and Mark Shuffle. And then I think we need to look at widening of Fontaine between, at least between State Highway 85 to Mountain Mesa Road, or to Powers.
I'm wondering if Bradley wouldn't alleviate the need for that, but
No, well, not with,
you don't think?
where Orson Ranch and
So what was this
nothing
section?
more get to Big 20.
Do you think, was it Fontaine between Mark Shuffle and Powers? I missed it.
Mesa Ridge
Mesa Ridge, okay.
Parkway is between Powers and
So we're going to go widen from Powers
The main widening,
west?
main widening issue we have, I think, is that section Fontaine between Patches from Whitefield, Security Boulevard, up to Grinnell.
So many right-of-way and utilities in there. Freaking houses.
So Dwayne wants to be the lead on that project.
Yeah. We're going to put that down as a fountain project, and El Paso County staff had nothing to do with it.
That might mess up Jennifer Victoria's sidewalk project.
Considering we're just getting ready to go break ground on new sidewalks through there.
You can push them back into his home.
Ooh. I'm going to struggle on that one, Dwayne.
So I can't remember, is this part of a motion discussion?
No.
So this-
we made
no,
our
this is-
motion, so this is local
This
projects.
is the local,
Discussion.
local road
Just
projects.
discussion
Okay.
For now, leading to a motion.
And so I'll just review what I have. Charter Oak Ranch Road improvements, Academy South improvements, the Ute Pass Trail from Manitou to,
I would just say the Ute Pass Trail as identified in the county's
in
Master
recently adopted master
recent
plan.
plan, okay. Highway 105 from Woodmore to 83, is that a widening project?
2 to 4? 2 to 4.
2 to
Well,
4.
It's kind
Is
of,
it 4 to 6?
it's kind of already for, I mean, some of it's.
So I'll just leave widening. And,
Yeah.
Stapleton Briargate Parkway connection, is it a widening and connection, or is it just connection?
This connection, there's not
Connection.
a,
Mesa Ridge Parkway connection from Powers to Mark Shuffle, and the Fontaine widening from 85 to Fountain Mesa or Powers. That's what I've heard so far. Does that sound right?
And that's a fountain project.
Yeah, that Fontaine one's from a county road.
Tell your wife to stay out of my business.
Any other thoughts from the committee? Wow.
a
Seems like a
question.
good list.
What's the South Academy improvements?
It's essentially from Pro B down to I-25. It's going from 4 to 6 lanes, carrying 40,000 people a day. And if
Okay.
you talk to some of the people going to Fort Carson in the morning,
No, I know it's queues up.
yeah.
Would it include interchange, looking at maybe a potentially new interchange configuration?
No, it just widened from 4 to 6 lanes. CDOT's actually looking at some ramp improvements already. I think they have funding for some ramp improvements, I believe.
Onto I-25?
Yeah.
But I mean, if it was to be converted into, say, a diverging diamond, it might
We
remove
could look,
some
we
of
don't have to
the...
decide that right now. We
Yeah.
can look at that as we go forward, if we get some nice funding for a priority project.
Okay.
So Academy South improvements, widening from Pro B to I-25 with other intersection and interchange improvements?
Could be considered, yeah.
And then 105 is 2 to 4.
105, widening from 2 to 4. Okay.
There's some safety stuff in there too, but, you know.
Any other thoughts?
Oh. Shouldn't technically we put the, I didn't think about it till right this second, but shouldn't we put the transit center in the local projects and not the state ones? It's not really a state, unless it's a state project.
Well, if they're going to put Mustang there, Mustang would go there, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay, that's cool then.
Yeah.
Need to be sure, I didn't think about it till right now.
I mean, we can have it in both lists if it helps at all.
All right, I'm going to move that list become our local list of priority projects. Really? No second? Really?
You
Dwayne?
with the dogs in the
Thank
fight
you.
in a second.
I was wondering, were there any Woodland Park projects priorities weren't discussed before we finalize the list?
Well, I was looking at Craig at the discussion we had, but I don't know that's really not a local project.
Yeah, and that could go in the other, sort of along the lines of the I-25 NEPA completion from the previous list.
I just struggle with being a priority. I mean, you know, it is and it isn't. You know, that's, I was going to talk with you. after the meeting.
50.1% think it is, and 49.9 think it's not.
I'll defer to your advice, Craig. I mean, just, if you think we need to put it in there, let's do that. But, you know, what we're talking about is the bypass has come up again. I mean, I'll just digress a little bit. We just are finishing up our transportation study, alternative route study, which really was looking at internal traffic circulation, but it kept digressing to the bypass, and so
Every time,
our
every
staff
discussion.
representative came up into the meetings and said, "Oh, see, that's got gobs and gobs of money. All you got to do is ask for it."
And,
Paraphrasing, but
yeah,
that's pretty much what it is.
that's true.
And I'm like, it's not going to happen in our lifetime. But, so that's why I'm deferring to Craig for the expert advice, is that if we should include it in here, help me out and say we should include it in here.
An actual study hasn't been looked at since the 70s.
Yeah, I know.
So I
Funding is-
don't know if a
Study in
PE,
then.
yeah, so that's why it's sort of similar to the I-25 NEPA. Let's, do a bypass, a PEL,
Local study.
Okay.
yeah, local study.
Oh, you want to make that a local study instead of on the state plan
Well,
section?
it would, what do you think?
Yeah, because it's not even in our jurisdiction.
Oh,
But would it be adopted by your transportation plan?
but it would be a CDOT road, though?
Yeah, it'd become the new US
Probably
24.
needs to be in the state section.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Yeah.
not a local.
Okay. Can we finish the local and then go back and amend the state list?
If
Yep, that would be good.
you would indulge me to do that, I would appreciate that.
We will. All right, so we had a first and a second.
We have a second?
No.
Yes, Dwayne.
Oh, Dwayne did second.
God love
yes.
him.
So we have a first and a second.
Got my
Any
cane.
further discussion on the local projects? Anything from the audience?
I don't need to be naive here, because I haven't come to that many of these meetings, but like, would this be an opportunity to say, we've got a real problem with the Front Range Trail going through Air Force Academy, and there's been a lot of talk, at some point, we're gonna perhaps need to move that trail off the Air Force Academy and put it somewhere else. Is there any rationale for putting it on this list, so that down the road, it can at least be considered?
I think it's part of one of the top 10 corridors, Voyager Parkway, so it's kind of
Been
automatically
in the,
fit in.
in the
But
10
what-
million.
This situation really wasn't part of that discussion, you know? This is something
Yeah.
that's fairly new, that is now leading to new discussions about maybe we need a long-term solution.
So a study of a relocation as a local
Good.
priority
It's a good
project?
start. Thank you.
Just need to shift the right-of-way line to the west.
I mean, wouldn't that study, though, or the actual movement fall into our $10 million lump, though?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. I think it's covered, actually, with our,
I think we already included it, in essence.
right.
Well, my impression was that the 10 million was really dedicated to infrastructure, primarily for the
Right.
corridors where cost estimates have been. So a study, although related, seems somewhat different.
Anytime we do a project, it's going to be studied, designed, planned before it's constructed. So
Yeah.
regardless, those planning components are included in that 10 million anyway.
Built in.
So, under the, sorry.
So,
Tim.
So the non-motorized study, the top 10 corridors does not include Voyager Parkway, but the second 10 does. And the Voyager Parkway is one of the key north-south through there. So it would be automatically in part of that as part of our 10 million regional. And there's already, through the development review process, there's already been some trail infrastructure constructed through with the residential subdivisions. And so it would tie in nicely on the west side of Voyager, tying in with the existing stuff. So I don't know if we really need to study it, we just need to build it.
Well, I think your point still holds. I mean, whether it's construction or, all the preceding design review, it's still in the 10 million.
It's Prego.
Yeah.
It's in there.
Great.
So in the description notes section of the list for the regional non-motorized priorities, $10 million, I could say with the priority corridors with a focus on completing the Ute Pass Trail in the recently adopted county plan and studying Front Range realignments. Just as the note says, it's $10 million for priority corridors. But we want to make sure that these two projects are acknowledged as sort of first among equals.
I'm not.
You're not, okay.
I'm not, because there's other priorities that might come up, and that's being too specific. It's a priority corridor, it's going to compete with everything else.
And not to belabor the point, but a lot of stakeholders went through the criteria development and weighting process, and that's how the 10 came up, so it's not really honoring that process.
So, okay.
Okay, again, being technical, don't we have to move that non-motorized money out of the state section and put it in the local section when we open up for the 67, or for the bypass?
Yeah, we
I
probably
think
do,
we
don't
probably
we?
should just- I mean, it's still a priority, it's just, it's not a state priority, any of those. So I think we just
So-
have it in the wrong list.
Well, except that they're along I-25, and some of them are along, I mean, I think we could put it in both places, because some of them are state highway corridors, and some of them are local
They
corridors.
are in both places, you're right.
I think we need to,
Okay, so then let's just leave it in the state like we're leaving the
So-
split local state transit center.
Would the
Because-
motion maker and seconder be willing to add the priorities from the regional non-motorized study to local list also?
No, I'd rather, just like we left the downtown transit, which is they split one in the state section, I'd rather just list it in the state section, and we all recognize that some of them are state and some of them are local.
That's fine.
Yeah. As long as it's in there, I don't think we have to duplicate, the same projects on different lists. And let's be real, the state list
It
is
should
going to
just
get
have a
more
list.
attention and priority anyway than the local list, so
You
it's probably
think?
better to be on the state list than the local list.
In the end, are we going to have one list or two lists?
Probably two.
Or
Well,
one
actually,
list
maybe
in
three
one
at this rate.
section.
Yeah, three at this point.
Why don't you, Craig, you just put a little asterisk or note, those twos, identifying that some of them.
Beautiful.
So, okay.
Alrighty, first, for the, sorry. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Anything from the audience? Alrighty, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Wow.
And as the motion maker, I would like to open up and amend our state list to include study of the 24 West bypass.
US 24 bypass.
Thank you.
Who was the seconder on that one?
Wasn't you? Who did
Originally-
the state one? Yeah, who did the state second?
Originally, Tim did the
Tim.
second.
That was me.
Will you accept that amendment?
Yes, I will.
To the original motion?
That was a long time ago.
It
was.
a long time ago.
Okay, we have a first and a second on that one. Any further discussion? I think we already kind of discussed it, but audience discussion. Alrighty, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Wow, that actually went way smoother than I had anticipated, so good job, everyone.
Alrighty, item number 11, fiscal year 2017 to 2022 tip, call for projects. This is an informational item. Scott Phillips, Transportation Planner.
The application's been posted. The application you have here that was sent out earlier is, the one online has been revised. There were some spelling issues that needed to be addressed. But the overall application is in this format. It's a Excel worksheet. We ask that you provide your application electronically to us, if that can be done. Paper applications, just drop them off here at PPACG or mail them to us. They will be date stamped upon receipt, so we got them in time. And we will have some guidelines to just give you a little outline with regards to the application itself, available funds, years that we're doing the call for projects, which will be for the 2019, is it 2019, 2020, 2020 through 2022. Yeah, given that we use the 2019 funds for backfill and assisting projects to become complete. If there's any questions or any assistance that's needed, or if you have questions about the app or anything associated with it, feel free to call us. We'll be more than happy to help you walk through the application. If you need extra sheets or something during the filling it out, please feel free to add those on and just make sure that you identify each goal criteria that are identified on the application, so we can associate the answers back and forth.
Tim?
I apologize, I haven't seen the email. I didn't see the email that went out yesterday.
Sure.
But a question is, last tip round of call for projects, an entity couldn't exceed the amount of funds available. Does that apply this time also?
Yes, it does. Applications are being requested. We requested applications, or the deadline is December 15th, 5 p.m. So,
Victoria?
yes.
Okay, I saw in the board packet, the numbers were dramatically different than what we had passed on this one. And so I'm wondering what's up. I saw that you took $1 million off the top, but the difference was about $2.5 million. So I really want the other $1.5
We'll have
million
to,
back.
we'll have to, we'll get back with you on that one with regards to if there was a change. Again, looking at the numbers, we're working on the estimates that were provided, so.
We have solid numbers from CETA, we just have to figure out which ones they are. So we'll send those out as soon as we get them.
We need to know if it's because.
ASAP,
Yeah,
yeah.
affects what we submit.
And tell CDOT we want these numbers.
Two things. One, on the $1 million up the top. Right now, it's in 2020, but it seems like CDOT is going to be running that project when it happens. If that is the case, then they can cash manage from any year, so those funds could actually come from like 2024 at that point. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, I guess. And the second thing is the markup of the transportation bill went to the House today, and it still contains the big drop in Metro dollars to us. We're going to ignore that until it actually happens, but it is a significant decline in Metro funding to our area. So.
I also want to emphasize that we did not include CMAQ, given that we should be in attainment by 2019. So those funds, anything that you see with CMAQ, we have been using those funds, again, to assist in backfilling project needs based on inflationary costs. That still is going on a little bit too here. So.
Craig?
And the biggest impact is going to be the Metro rides, because they've been using that for operations.
Mhm.
So that's where that's going to be the big crunch.
Yeah.
So.
For folk, the paint's still drying very much on the 2040 regional. So what are you telling folks? Have you been asked the question yet? What about consistency or compliance for the regional?
We're using the same criteria for sure.
Yeah.
And maybe the same weighting. So that's compliance with that.
I'm sorry, Craig, my question was, so that question, how does it meet the goals established in the 2040 moving forward?
We utilize the same, essentially the same goals and criteria that were, the 13 goals and criteria that were established in the 2040 plan for the development of the TIP.
So can we not answer that question then? Instead of making me make up some hoopla?
You could say, please see TAC meeting from 10:15.
I might do that.
But we're utilizing this essentially the same criteria and goals that were established. And in addition with that, to your other question, we did everything. We were trying to do everything to make sure that they aligned very well together.
Yeah.
The goals, criteria, and if you look at the weighting, when you look at compare the weighting, it's with the exception, I think there's one ranking weighting element that we have, and with that exception, everything else is within very minute percentages, points.
Okay.
So it's very, very, very similar. And I also want to emphasize our scoring has been updated through comments that were provided during the approval portion of that. But they are also very similar and were drawn up in accordance to how it was done with the 2040 plan.
Tim?
So I'm seeing a question that says, is the route identified in the congestion management program? 2035 or 2040?
2040.
Okay.
We can update that too, and we'll get that on there.
Is your NHS route, the updated NHS routes, is that on your website?
It should be.
That's in the CMP.
Yeah, and there are some things where, other things where, like the EJ, where you'll need information from us. We know you're going to need it, so we're going to try to get it all together in a nice, easy, either shape file or some format to send that out to you. So.
Alrighty, any other questions for staff on the application? I guess I would just encourage, if you had any questions as you move along with these applications, make sure you contact staff early and often.
And we hope we gave you enough lead time to work on these two. I know it's it's never enough time. But I know, given the holidays and everything that's coming up at this time of year, this has been a very compressed process. And we're hoping to be able to work with everybody and make sure that everything's completed and everybody's happy with the process, the way it works out.
And if any agency has a question, or maybe they could include everybody so that
Sure.
That's a good idea.
Sure, that'd be great. That'd be great.
that we're all on the same page.
Alrighty. Anything else? Moving on, item number 12, 2016 to 2019 TIP, amendment number 8. Information and discussion. Scott.
Yeah, we were provided, are notified by CDOT with regards to a listing of delayed projects that we have. Attached with this memo is a listing of 22 projects within the region that are identified by CDOT as being delayed. Recent upgrades to FHWA's FEMA system is making some changes to it. Aaron, maybe we might be able to get some input from you with regards to some of the changes that is requiring these projects to possibly be budgeted from the FEMA system. I'm kind of out there on.
There's no changes from FEMA's 4 to 5 except the interface.
Okay.
And some other backroom stuff, but it's all
Okay.
going to be the same requirements.
Okay.
Yeah, and and following what Aaron said, apparently there's been requirements for a while. CDOT hasn't been they've been more kind to local entities and been very good at making money that's old, spending it
Fresh.
first,
Yeah.
keeping the money fresh. With the cash management, it's getting harder for them to do that, and so these projects, I guess, until they're ready to go to ad, have to be deobligated, and then they'll be rebudgeted. The big downside of that is when that happens, all the new super circular rules have to be followed. So, which is all the schedule and all that, those strings. And I think those are the key points that I had is.
Yeah. And again, down the road, we're going to be bringing also this through the boards, our committees and board again. It goes with our delay policy that we have here too. Part of that is that need to provide, if we're rolling forward, not the first year, but the second year, especially the second year projects, we'll be sending out a listing of 4 projects that are delayed for you guys, and just, we're asking you just to provide a justification. It'll be a column on a spreadsheet to, projects delayed because of IGA issues or something like that, so we can just move that forward and, have an understanding of where projects are in the process and update our board members with regards to the projects that have been programmed. And we have an understanding where the money is. So that's just coming up. This is just a heads up on it. This list of projects was provided to us by CDOT. It is a pretty good chunk of change. It's around $20 million worth of projects. And so just heads up that this is going to be coming out to you guys very shortly.
Jim.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So might I suggest a project status form
Yeah.
that hits key points in the development of the project, because we have design IGA agreements, and there's points where we are, some of these projects on the list are a month out from being ready to go to bid,
Sure.
and
It's one of the reasons why they're information item and not action this month. So
Yeah.
yeah.
if you can get them out, that'd be awesome.
And it's like if we're in if the money gets rebudgeted, and then what's the process in that? And if we now fall into the super circular requirements, well, it's not easy because you've just added another 4 to 6 months onto implementing that project.
And 4 to 6%.
And and then the cost of that project goes up.
Yeah.
So you just delayed the project actually longer.
And that's understood.
I don't say you.
Yeah.
I'm saying that's,
The process itself.
process has delayed the project, delayed project even longer.
And the goal, I think, starting here maybe is to be able to maybe do some early identification of issues with some projects that are coming up. So we're aware of it. We're prepared. Everybody knows what's going on. If that project needs to be pushed out, maybe we do some reshuffling within the TIP to make other projects that might be more prepared, ready to go.
I would even suggest
go
you
to the
guys
road.
develop a form,
Yeah.
and then we talk about it
Sure.
and act on it here.
Yeah.
Craig?
Yeah, one of the things that we at PPACG have failed to do is the twice-a-year status updates of all projects that have money. I think we're going to have to do that with rigor going forward. So I think the form, I
Unless we have
love
a
that
form.
idea. Yeah, if you have a form, it's
Or
like,
you just send it to us, and you guys don't have to worry about it.
and we'll have the 4 or 6 whatever questions that, here's what it is, and then update it.
And I'm thinking of more of something with columns, and it's, this is where I'm check. We haven't had.
Oh, checkbox.
Yeah, and if we could put something together, and the idea would be like, here's our rollover, here's, like, moving into the TIP this year, we'll be rolling over projects, correct?
Right.
And part of that, we'll just take that rollover list, and, we'll have maybe a column in that for you guys to either check box or just provide status update with regards to the rollover. And I think that would make it easy, very clear.
I'm seeing checkbox with the part where we do have to answer why.
Yeah,
why
yeah.
it's described, but
Oh,
Don't get
what
too detailed in this first round, though.
what would
It's just
be,
easier to do a checkbox than to have to answer 6 questions.
Sure.
Well,
and
I
get into
don't
the
think it needs to be
details.
6 questions. I think we could probably provide a 1-sentence update on where it is, where it doesn't let's not restrict ourselves before we've even been through this yet. Let's kind of go through it and see what works and what's possible and we don't have the kind of staff that the city does.
But see, Victoria, this is what it would enable, like you and me to do, is we take this form, and you go give it to the engineer who's in charge of the project.
Yeah, but I'm looking
Jennifer.
out for her,
I know,
too.
and then Jennifer has to fill it out.
I mean, let's
She
not
doesn't
make
need to
it too
sleep.
hard. I mean, at this point, we haven't done it at all.
I think,
Provide a status on your projects, we provide an email.
But
It's
a check is easier for Jennifer,
I don't
too.
know that it's as simple as a check.
well, I guess what I would say, Tim, is that I think that we have all kinds of statuses going around, whether it's at the county, the local level, the CDOT level, and then the
MPO?
PPACG level. So I'm wondering if there's
Yeah,
something
can we
that
just,
we
maybe
have.
we can just use some that you're already doing. I mean,
Instead of creating a new.
yeah.
I think we need to look at it and
Let's
create a
try
process that,
Yeah, if we can just take something you're doing already, that would, to me, that's awesome. I mean,
The idea, we don't want to reinvent the wheel.
I'm okay not going harder, detailed oriented, but
Well, maybe
You
you
know,
do the
and
form
maybe
for
it's
now
a-
and we just
uh,
submit the
like-
information.
like a lot of your projects are probably the same as ours, where it's waiting for CDOT to approve it IGA. And that's just a check on where it is in the status, rather than having to type in and I'm trying to make it easy for us too.
How about if we put, if you guys have some ideas for the check boxes, provide them to us, and we'll put something together, and we'll get it back out to you guys before we have this meeting again, and you guys can provide some if you want to give comments, great. If you don't, but we can bring it forward in a timely process. And with your input with regards to, you guys know more about why there are delay issues than we do. So that would be, it'd be very helpful for us to hear where your delays are coming from and have an understanding of why there are issues.
Craig,
we'll take a look to see what you guys are already doing, what other MPOs are doing, and in 2 to 6 months, maybe get back to you.
that's a great idea.
So,
2 to 6, okay.
yeah, we've got a full count.
And this also goes like, if you set it up right, I know I used to do the federal annual report of federal obligated funds, and it was just a kind of hand in hand. I did a monthly thing, and here's the project list for this year, and everybody would, just provide an update. We'd get their notice of obligation, or E-76s from FHWA and Caltrans, and, we're done. So, It's just something easy, and
I'd like to recommend CDOT go back to moving the money around for us. It was very easy and convenient. Wendy just handled it all, and we were all good. And the money was there when we needed it. It was a good process. Let's go back to that.
Noted.
Input provided and ignored.
With Wendy not being here, too.
I know. Somebody needs to give kudos to Wendy, because she used to make this very easy for us.
Alrighty, anything additional on that? Alrighty, let's move on to item number 13, PPACG staff report.
We have started, I mentioned earlier the vacancies we have. We had our first interview today. We're interviewing for the next week-ish for one of the vacancies. Please bear with us. Like I was telling earlier, this packet is the first time I've, from soup to nuts, done a packet. And it happened at the same time we were doing board memos, so sorry about the mistakes. I'll try to do better next time. This week, I think today is the last day of the counts that we're doing. Next week will be any cleanup counts that we're going to reject because they didn't get enough time or whatever. So we've done a lot of counts. Our model update, we're going to validate to 2015. So we have the 2015 housing, household, and jobs data, and now we've got 2015 counts. So our model update will validate to 2015 as our base year. I guess it's a validation year. We are a good part of the process of adding dynamic assignment to the model. Next year, we'll be putting out an RFP shortly to take it to a tour-based model. We've got, and this is, the cost is going to be over what we thought we'd slided it under having to do a full RFP. We're not going to be able to. But we're still spending less than the $3 million Dr. Cog spent on getting theirs to a tour base. See, so that's model. INRIX, we're continuing to play with the INRIX data, get more familiar with it. We've started, we're going to get the 2013 and 14 crash data geocoded, so we can start doing some of the analysis on that. Plan is almost done. Executive summary is in final stage of review. I'll be sending that out as soon as the executive summary is cleaned. TIP, I think that covers it. Oh, and we'll be starting our new, what's it called, the MOAs. With CDOT, we're going to be doing an MOA with CDOT, and I guess Transit's not here, we'll be updating our MOAs. I think that covers the next months of just
You're going to amend your EPW fee to reflect sort of
the strategic plan thing, I think, and we're going to get the numbers, because
plan and your TDM work?
yes, and also the new numbers that we got for CPG funding. So when we do that, when we get the final numbers, we'll be tweaking some of those, because the numbers, our carryover is going to be different is one of the big things. So we'll be doing that, UPWP amendment, TIP, plan, model, just basic stuff. So.
Tim, are the city's traffic counts going to be done about the same time his traffic counts are done?
Well, I don't know. I'd have to check with Aaron. I don't know. I was wondering, so that all these counts around town are yours? Okay. I didn't realize that.
Yep, those are ours.
And we only have like 6 locations that we do annually, and then the rest are on demand based on projects. So I'd have to see where she stands with those.
Yeah, because I know that you've done someone, Mark Scheffel, and Kathleen was on the news talking about the traffic counts that were being done. I can't imagine that would happen for just 6 locations.
We only have 6.
You must have done more recently, though, than just those 6.
We're on a 3-year cycle again.
Yep.
And we don't do, tens and tens like we used to. We were very strategic in picking them, and there's only so many done a year related to that 3-year cycle.
Who's Aaron?
She's our traffic counts person, Sinclair.
I ask and highlight this because we're going to be looking at potentially doing some traffic counts as well, and so I want to make sure I have yours and yours.
And CDOT has done, and you do have CDOT. CDOT did some
CDOT's, and then look at where things are missing, so.
And we will be, in all likelihood, doing some additional turning movement type intersection counts next spring, but we need to digest all the counts we have now to figure out what we
Where
need
you
to.
might want to do
Yeah.
it.
How many do you have? How many of these saturation counts are yours?
289 locations, I think.
Yeah, it's a good number.
So,
I think PPACG should just take over doing traffic counts for the region.
And our hard part is, is the local match for it. It takes a pretty big bite out of it. We're doing almost $30,000 worth of counts between, we're doing the CMP quarter counts and the model validation counts at the same time. So,
But we might want to talk about, because their 30,000 and our 20,000 and that 30,000, we might actually be able to do a local match, get the 80% instead of us paying all our local money.
that would be awesome
into
from
the
my
counts.
point of view.
We should coordinate that, just a
Yeah.
suggestion for the future here.
Yep. So, and,
Because we could get so many more counts for the region if we all put up local match, and you could get 3 times as much federal money.
That would be
So,
great.
Yeah, and I think you've got plenty of planning money to do it.
especially now that we don't have the survey to do, we're better off.
Right?
Yeah,
Some
I
room.
was looking at, what do we start saving for that survey, so.
Alrighty. Anything else, Craig?
Question, actually, I was asked earlier, something else that we've done in the past is pavement condition gathering. And so is there an interest in, similar to doing the counts, to doing pavement condition? We can do something similar with that. That's information that helps us, and I think you guys also,
I think that that's probably a good discussion item for,
for a future TAC agenda.
No, actually, I would do a side meeting, because there's people that we would want to bring to that are not Jennifer and I,
Okay.
that run our program, because I know we go out and drive the roads and the whole 9 yards
Yes.
too, so
I was going to say, I thought we gave you the data.
yeah.
I think we did. I think we gave you our data.
Yeah, and see, because in 2007, I think we did what I just talked, similar to what I talked about, is we did the 80% and asked for 20% from you and just drove literally every collector and above. We get 100% data for every collector and above. 2017 would be a 10-year after that 2007 effort. So, I know it's earlier than that, but if we started planning for it now,
But that's exactly what my timeline is, because we did it in 2007, and I'm getting ready to do it
Can't
again.
remember when we did it.
I think we did it last year.
okay, it's 2007 would be too soon for you then, probably.
Actually, I think we're trying to do it every 3 to 5 years.
Okay. So I'll put that as a future discussion item.
And we'll
'Cause
we'll get to the right people.
And especially coordinating with CDOT, because the CDOT does it too. And so if we can, there's got to be a way we can do this efficiently and effectively. So,
It'd be great, I think.
So is that going to be an action item for a future meeting?
or I think discussion, I think, let's have the meetings and see if it can work. And so we'll need to get some CDOT, probably our Region 2 or maybe headquarters. I think that, I can't think of the guy's name in headquarters who does it. Well, no, it's, not William, he works for William. I can't think of his name. Anyway, get the CDOT person there. I think if we have all the right people in the room, I think that would be good. It'd be a quicker discussion anyway.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, we kind of do that for a lot of our federal aid bridges, and as far as condition assessment for that, I mean, we partner with CDOT on that, and so,
And 2017 also, by the way, works perfectly in with our next long-range plan update, so.
yeah. Great. Alrighty, member entity announcements. Victoria.
We are planning to do a major transportation corridor plan update next year. Look for that.
Bill.
Once again, I'd just like to say thank you to PPACG and CDOT for the support and funding for our local network transportation study that we're finishing up. So, thank you.
And I think it's been a good study, but every meeting I went to, or the 3 meetings, that it was like, okay, we need the bypass. I mean, it was immediately to that.
Despite Herculean efforts to decouple the two and say, what can we do to help ourselves? Somehow that just couldn't sink in, so. But we've accomplished some good stuff.
Awesome.
So I have something I want to hand out, and then a couple announcements associated with that. A few extras for audience members, if you'd like them. Only 2 of the left, dude. Thank you. Okay. First off, the title of this map is talking about urbanized area boundary, but the first thing I want to talk about is actually relative to the submission of the roadway classification change request from El Paso County, which I guess is where I speak now, for the Charter Oak Ranch Road to be reclassed from a local road to, the request was to a minor arterial. And so just wanted a brief update you on that process. We kind of held off doing that while our information management group was coding the roadway classifications relative to the new UZA boundaries. So now that is done, we're ready to kind of prepare a submission for a submission to FHWA, which is essentially the request for the roadway classification change and our rationale for doing so. So it's simply a memo, as Aaron has said, a memo along with the information and rationale for that change. And then, Aaron, I have no idea if you have a guess on what timeline that would be till we kind of hear from FHWA as to what point of time would be that it's officially changed and so forth. But I know you said on the phone that you weren't sure what that process looked like.
It'd probably be a couple of weeks. Not no more than 2 months.
Okay.
Actually, I'd say it probably wouldn't be a month, but sometimes headquarters is slow, so I'd say a couple of weeks.
And Craig, given that, are you okay with us submitting Charter Oak Ranch Road for the tip?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
Given that we think it's definitely going,
I believe it's
as long
already
as
in there with
it's
the
changed by
study.
the time the money
Yeah, that
comes
would-
in, we're
yeah,
cool?
that'd be fine, yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
I have a question. So you have adjusted UZA.
I'm
October
getting to that.
2015? Okay.
So you'll see then there's some adjustments to be made. The first one is relative to the Charter Oak Ranch Road, in that the current adjusted UZA boundary that Pikes Peak and the governor agreed to, which is the darker orange, darker burnt orange line, cut the Charter Oak Ranch Road in two. So the logical need there was then to change your urbanized area boundary to include that entire roadway. That section we're talking about, I have pointed
I
you
thought
to
we
it.
did do that when we
At the
adjusted
very
the.
bottom of your map here, where you'll see the town, the town name of Fountain, and the dark orange line just next to that as it descends down. That small local road right there that comes off at sort of a bent L shape is Charter Oak Ranch Road. And you'll see that the current urbanized area boundary cut that in two, which means you have two different roadway categories. So to clean this up and to be submitting for one roadway class for the entire thing, which is what your request was for, and we discussed at the time that you would want to adjust your urbanized area boundary. So what has taken place is sort of a compounding that is once all the urbanized area boundaries were adopted in the state, throughout the state, the next step was all of the nitty-gritty work that goes on behind it relative to determining the actual transition points where roadway classifications change from urban to rural and from, different category level of road. That all gets codified into a system called HPMS. And HPMS is I believe it's an FHWA system that is then, data is used for all sorts of, related things that are downstream of that. The FHWA instructed our DTD folks in information management that the way it used to be done was, which was a little bit messy and not exact, we can't do anymore. And what I mean is you take an urbanized area boundary, which is initially developed by the census, which means it's related to census tracts. And if you've ever looked at census tracts, those boundaries can be determined by an array of different things. It could be a river, it could be a highway, it could be a lat or longitudinal line, it can be a property line. They don't coincide necessarily with roadway system boundaries, and therefore you might look at a boundary on the urbanized area and think, okay, well, on this scale of a map, it might look like, oh, it follows that road, but then when you zero in, and you go in there and you zoom in, you realize that it doesn't quite follow it. In fact, maybe it crisscrosses it a couple times, in which case it's not exact. But the intention of FHWA in the roadway codification going forward is that it is exact,
and that you can use the urbanized area boundary as a cookie cutter to place those roadway transition points perfectly. Follow me?
Yes. Can
Okay.
I interject?
Yeah.
We adopted an adjusted urbanized area boundary in 2012. Why isn't that shown here?
Why would it? 2012?
Yeah.
Nobody adjusted any boundaries in
We adjusted our boundary
2012.
in 2012, right at
You
the
did
start of this long-range plan.
You did an MPO.
No, that was, we
boundary.
did the MPO boundary at the end of the process. At the start, we did our adjusted urban area. I can tell, it was adopted by the board. It was done at the same time as the agreement with Dr. Cog on the little nub up in Douglas County.
So if you, okay, hold on a second. If you did some, I've never heard of an adjusted urbanized area
We did an
boundary of
adjusted urbanized area.
2012.
We
If
did.
it was, it never made it to the governor's desk, nor did it get.
It made it to
be-
CDOT. After what happened after that, I can't speak for, but I know it was submitted to CDOT.
Okay, this is all moot because this 2010 census boundaries reset everything,
No, this is what
And-
2012 is. We adjusted to make smooth boundaries.
but just a year ago, Pikes Peak chose to take the census urbanized area boundary and make your own subsequent adjustments.
No, that was the MPO boundary.
No. I really think you're confusing things, I really
Oh,
do.
I know exactly what I'm talking about.
Sounds like you guys need to talk off.
Regardless, the urbanized area boundary adjustment that Pikes Peak did the work on, submitted, got approved through the governor, that would nullify any adjusted urbanized area boundary that you did prior.
The one that we just got, the new MPO boundary, that includes this area down here.
Right.
That's the new MPO boundary.
Right, that's the new MPO, the dotted line he's
That's-
referring
yeah,
to.
that's a different
That's the
process.
MPO boundary, that's completely different. That's
Yes.
your planning area. Has nothing to do with urban or rural or what have you.
Yeah, at the start of this, has it been 3 years? Yeah, 2012, at the start of this process, we adjusted our urban area. Did an adjusted urban area.
It was exactly a year ago.
Oh, is that when we
and
finished? I don't know when we
It
finished
was
it.
only a year and 2 months ago that you did that adjustment.
Okay.
And that boundary is reflected on this map as the burnt orange line. That is exactly what you submitted to us and what was approved by the governor.
Okay.
Okay?
See, I thought it included I thought US 24, well, the thing I remember is US 24 going across there was part of that, making that a smooth boundary.
No, the one that you added in actually was this very large area to the, I don't know the roadways well enough, but south of 94. So
Okay.
large,
Yeah,
you see the large open area that you don't see any local
I'll
roads
have
within
John
that.
pop it up when we go
That was the
upstairs.
one piece, and I think that was on Victoria's recommendation was to move the boundary to there to keep that section of, I think it's, is it 24 over there on that east side? It's a section of some roadway that would have gone from urban to rural, back to urban and back to rural several times. So you said, just move that all the way out. What this map doesn't show you is the census boundary, so it's hard for us to say, what did you adjust from the census boundary?
we get the sheet files?
This is right, what does this mean?
Okay, I'm only halfway through this, sorry.
And then
So-
we're going to ask you two to get together and work it out and then come back to us with the future
Okay.
item.
The point to all this is that the new boundary that you're seeing in here, which is the pale yellow color, is a subsequently adjusted urbanized area boundary
Suggested for a board to adopt?
suggested for your board to adopt with very tight restrictions on what choice you have to make subsequent changes. If
This
you
hasn't been
really
submitted-
need to.
This hasn't been submitted to Federal Highway yet.
No.
Okay.
If you really feel the need to make lots of subsequent changes, you'll want to do that over the next year, and it won't actually affect HPMS and the roadway classification data for another year. What needs to take place now, and again, we did this, we took the liberty to do this, and I know this is not usually how we do this.
And it's not how we
But-
prefer you do it.
Well, now hang on a second. This was based on the Charter Oak Ranch Road request, right? So we already
So
agreed that it was necessary.
PPACG staff finding out about this in a TAC meeting is really not cool.
Okay, we talked about this, and with the Charter Oak Ranch, it was already, you indicated yourself, Craig, at one time, you have to
Oak Ranch-
change that. that boundary.
Right.
Okay. The rest of the boundary changes, as you can tell, are so small they really don't amount to much. But
I
they
see like
effectively,
500, I mean, there's, how many, there's 1,000 acres there maybe?
it's Fort Carson. It's essentially the majority of Fort Carson area.
Yeah, actually, it's some shooting ranges. There's a small arm shooting range there.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it's our small arms impact area, but it's also the entire, the old cantonment area and the wilderness plus army airfield areas now are included in this.
So,
Yeah, you got the whole wilderness area down there.
yep.
Which now includes 2 full brigades.
So, yeah, so we can start this process now. That's a good idea.
So, I mean, the one thing that's, to me, that would have stood out for you is that there's a piece of that does go outside of your MPO boundary.
Right.
Understand.
That the MPO boundary
There
has
is
to incorporate.
Absolutely does not have to incorporate the entire adjusted UZA. The MPO boundary must include the census urbanized area plus any area expected to urbanize in the next 20 years.
Yeah, and that's not going to urbanize, so.
So you can have an adjusted urbanized area that goes beyond what you think we'll actually urbanize in 20 years for any number of reasons. Including this area, as we've said, it's lots of forested area, hills, and operations going on there of we don't know what type. It's not going to urbanize, but it doesn't impact anything either. There's no roadways. In a lot of it, I don't believe there's any. A lot of parts of it don't have any population or anything. So it's not an impact to things, other than you'd say, wait, how come that bumps outside of the MPO
Have you looked at
area?
our scoring criteria?
Of course.
One of the scoring criteria is it in the census urban area? Is it in the adjusted urbanizing area? And then is it in the MPO boundary in descending order? So it actually directly impacts scoring.
If you had a roadway that it was actually in it,
Well,
right?
So
If you had a road,
I think
I agree.
for the tax agreement with CDOT and PPACG are going to start talking about this.
Okay, well, let's let him finish what he came here to present.
Well, I think I've kind of said what's taken place. I put some insets on here so you can see an example of why some of those boundaries were moved, so that you have clear locations where the roadways change. And on the backside is one additional one that I kind of did a zoom in on the little yellow and gray one below is the larger one. You'll see a box in there. The zoom in area is the larger picture. Another example of why it was adjusted, where you had this roadway, which I think was, I'm going to try to remember what the name of that roadway was, started with an M. Anyway, it was in the current,
goes up to the Cheyenne Mountain.
in the current boundary, it would cause a roadway transition in the middle of the section of road, as in there's not even a driveway where it might transition, or a retail or a population or traffic generating location or an intersection or anything. So those are the type of adjustments that were made, so that you don't have roadway transitions that might go in and out several
that are being
times.
suggested?
Yes, we'll follow up on this.
Well, we thank you for working
Yeah.
with us on getting Charter Oak Ranch Road in its proper place. Just to sort of take a look at this, looks like it would be a good thing for the county, so,
For the region.
and the region. So, thank you, and we'll look forward to hearing more about this once you two get on the same page.
Okay.
Dwayne.
Little question. If you look at this boundary of, I think it's Colorado Center area.
Yeah.
Bradley, there's all that, it's not local shells, it's all that area. Right through that,
What-
those subdivisions in there, and it's heavily urbanized.
if you could help
That's the
me,
full valley
because
down
I
there.
don't know
Okay.
your roadways
I
as
see-
well.
I see what you mean. Yes. Because you're right, with Charis and some of those other ones going in there, it's urbanizing quickly.
This little area
Right.
in there is urbanized.
Right.
Right in that. It's got-
Yeah. No, agreed. I see it. So, we didn't exactly want to include a whole bunch of areas that Pikes Peak didn't do so. We assume you, by doing your adjustments a year ago, you kind of looked at it and decided yourself where to
We had
adjust
some
them.
pretty clear criteria about
Again,
density and some other
Yeah.
things.
So the vast majority of the adjustments, subsequent adjustments on here were not to grab stuff that somebody at a desk that sits on the other side of the building from me who doesn't know anything about Pikes Peak was going to go and add in there. It was to just do these technical adjustments so that you could use this cookie cutter approach to code the roadway transition points. So that would be one where she probably looked at it and just said, well, you left it out maybe for a purpose, and so it's a clean line, how you drive in there, and we'll call all that rural. I can see some others where you might have, done the same, but it just cut roadways in pieces, so it was more sensible to move it out. Keep in mind that we could never move it in. We don't have that option legally.
Well, you can move it into the census.
census.
To the census area.
Right. But none were moved in, because we assumed if you, as Pikes Peak, had moved them out, you did so on purpose for some reason, so.
And we tried to apply a density standard and make sure that if it was this density of development in now here, then this area over here was also included with the same density. So that's how we did ours.
Right. Okay.
Anything else, Michael?
No, that's it. Thanks.
Thanks for bringing this forward. Any other member entity announcements? Alrighty, items for future TAC meetings.
Apparently adjusted or a census urbanized area boundary.
We'll be bringing the, as we begin moving forward with the tip, we'll be bringing some of the body of the document down the road for everybody to take a look at. We're just essentially going to be updating what was previously done.
Victoria?
Can we talk at our next meeting about the two pieces of legislation that's been to the TLRC, the stack change
Sure.
and the TC?
I know nothing about it, so I'll try to make sure Rachel is here.
Okay, and I have.
She's actually at our Title VI training today.
Ooh, good for her.
So we're getting Title VI trained.
If she needs some information, I have some on it, but
Okay.
I think they're very positive pieces of legislation for our region.
So, cool.
Alrighty, if there's nothing else, I'll consider a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Victoria first, Dwayne second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good afternoon.
Any opposed? Everybody have a great
We
afternoon.
need to get rid of that motion for adjournment. There's no point in voting. We're just going to give you that authority for